It's only a kick, a jump, a block. It's only a serve. It's only a tackle, a run. It's only for the fans. After all, it's only pressure. You got this. Adidas.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. From the launch your online shop stage, all the way to the we just hit 1 million orders stage. No matter what stage you're in, Shopify's there to help you grow. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/special offer, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/special offer.
I'm Alex Rodriguez.
And I'm Jason Kelly.
From Bloomberg, this is The Deal. Each week, you'll hear us in conversation with business icons.
This show will explore deal-making across sports, media, and entertainment.
That is a harsh lesson in business.
Sports is not as simple as bringing a bunch of big names together.
I didn't want to do another stomp you out speech.
It opened up so many more doors.
The show is called The Deal.
Listen to The Deal.
Listen to The Deal on Spotify.
Why take one vacation with the family when you could take all of them? With Royal Caribbean, you don't just go to the beach. You visit a private island and race down the tallest water slide in North America. You don't just go for a road trip. You ATV and zip line through the jungle. You don't just go somewhere new. You rappel down waterfalls and discover ancient temples. Because this isn't just any vacation. This is all the vacations. Come seek the Royal Caribbean. Ships Registry, Bahamas.
Welcome back, Ram fans. This is Rams Up, your favorite LA Rams podcast. We are proud members of the Fans First Sports Network. That's fansfirstsports.com. You can also follow us on YouTube. Our channel is at LA Rams Up. I'm your host, Mark. You'll hear from my co-host, Tom, on occasion as well. Hey, we're not Rams insiders. We're just longtime fans who love talking about our Los Angeles Rams. Let's get to it.
Welcome to another edition of Rams Up Roundtable. I'm Tom, your host at Rams Beat on X, joined by my Rams Up podcast co-host Mark and regular guests Ian and Paul. What's going on, guys? Ready to talk about offense tonight?
It's going to be more fun than the last one, that's for sure.
Yep,
Light up the scoreboard, baby.
Yeah,
light up the scoreboard.
That's right. Yeah, this is it's looking pretty good so far, but there are some needs, and so we're going to break it all down for everybody. We're going to dive right in here, and so I'm going to go through these position groups, give a quick fire question to each of you, and then we'll talk about the bigger picture for the position group afterwards. So we'll start with quarterback, and I'm going to start with Mark. Does Stetson Bennett come back better than ever, recovered from whatever his malady was, in shape and ready to be give the promise to Rams fans that we had when he was drafted in the 4th round last year?
Well, I don't have any inside intel on the topic, but I'm guessing he is. I'm thinking he's going to be ready. Again, just guessing here, but you know, there are some good reports we saw that he was working out and looked like he was in good shape. And why not? Why not? He's got a potential NFL career staring in his face. Let's hope he gets it together and is our backup quarterback weeks 1 and 2. That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah, with Jimmy G being suspended for weeks
1
and 2.
I forgot about Jimmy G being a dummy. Forgot about that.
Yeah. He lost a bit.
I still think that hopefully it's okay to add this. I still think it's very possible the Rams draft a quarterback, but that's all I'll say about that.
Oh, we're jumping ahead. Okay, so Ian, if Jimmy G had to fill in for staff for, your typical Staff got injured. Let's call it 2 to 3 games. That's been standard operating for procedure for Stafford, right?
I guess so.
And so one way or another, good line, bad line, whatever it is, that's kind of been the MO. So if Jimmy G had to fill in for Stafford for 2 or 3 games, how are we looking?
I think he could be serviceable, and I think he could do a decent job at the minimum. Truthfully, let's just be honest with ourselves. He understands this version of the Mike Shanahan offense, right? The core of it, which Sean and Kyle, the 49ers, run. Obviously, they have their varying versions. Now we're kind of more 49er-esque now, running a lot of the gap stuff. But the terminology is the same. The instructions of where to go on your reads are the same. And he was in that, that was the best Jimmy ever looked, was under Kyle in that style of offense. No shocker that he chose here out of all the spots to be able to hopefully replicate that. So I think, would he be this Pro Bowl level quarterback? No. But would he be serviceable? Would he be better than Brett Rippon or Stetson Bennett we saw last year? Yes.
Would he be better than Carson Wentz?
I think, and that still bothers me, truthfully, because Carson didn't get a lot of money. But based off what Coach McVay said, Les Snead have said that Jimmy could run this offense more seamlessly than Carson. That's their own words. They said it. Yeah. So I do tend to believe that, truthfully. But if Carson was around a little bit longer, I think he could have learned this offense. So that still pisses me off, and I know Paul bothers him equally, and I'm sure you guys deep down somewhere. But to answer it, long story short, I think Jimmy could play. I think he could throw some touchdowns. And it's just, can you not do 49er Jimmy Garoppolo end of game things? That's really what we're trying to avoid, right? A dumb interception, a bad read here and there.
That's what Kyle pegged him not to do before every game. Stay within the playbook. Okay, so Paul, how many more years does our boy Staff have in him? How many more NFL seasons?
High quality, 3.
3 more this year and 2 more.
Yep,
wow,
absolutely.
That's interesting. So. Yeah,
and I will, and I'll put a comment right behind it. I said it in 2 podcasts ago. I said the Rams and the coaching staff have to do a better job. Mark and I were talking about this. They have to do a better job. So look, Donald said he was burnt out. Look what they've done to Cooper Kupp. Right, he's a shell of his former self. Hopefully, he comes back strong. They have to do a better job of protecting their star players, allowing them to have longevity in this league. That's been a major failing on their part. And listen, look, great coaching staff, but that is something that has been glaring. We saw it last year when he got rocked against Stafford. I mean, they can't keep subjecting him to that abuse. They spent a lot of money on this O-line, and listen, it was a smart move on their part, but the bottom line is you have to know how to manage the game and make sure that Optimus 9 is in optimal condition come playoff time. And he could easily light it up for another 3 years. Easily. No question in my mind.
I love it.
I think so too. Yeah.
So now let's get into the bigger picture, and you guys just go ahead and have at it, have a conversation about it. So do we draft? This is a very quarterback-heavy draft, right? Some people saying it's almost certainly 3 quarterbacks going in the top 3, maybe 4 in the top 4, maybe 6 in the first round. And that means there's some other quarterbacks after that, right? So do the Rams draft a quarterback in this draft? And if so, where? And, how are we feeling about our depth at this point? Go ahead, lead off, Mark.
I can go first, and it all depends on 2 things. It depends on 2 things that we don't have the answer to, how they feel about Stetson Bennett and how many, if they're going to trade up. If they're going to trade up in this draft, I don't think they're drafting a quarterback. They're going to have fewer draft picks and more needs than they have draft picks, and they will not draft a quarterback. But my guess would be if they stick with 11 picks and they roll with 11 picks or even add a couple of picks, I think they'll find they'll take a shot at a guy with the potential to be a backup quarterback.
Gotcha.
I have no idea.
Kind of a later round or something.
Yeah, Yeah, I have no idea who that might be. I know people have talked about Spencer Rattler, but that'd probably take a fourth round pick, third or fourth round pick, I think, if not higher. But there's some other guys. The Florida State guy I know Paul really likes. He could probably be had in the sixth round, I think. But that's my take on it right now.
What do you guys think, Paul? Ian?
Go ahead. Go ahead, dude.
All right. Well, look at it. I agree with Mark's points about it depends on the flow of where we're going to allocate our resources. And I think at the end of this offensive segment here, talking about every group, there's some things that are interesting that have been coming out this last, day and a half. But in terms of drafting the QB, it's not impossible, truthfully. Jimmy's on a 1-year deal. Stetson, we don't know. Look at it. We've talked about it. There was some obviously personal things going on. And who knows how that's going to turn out. And then how we going to know that he's going to be any good on the field, too. Let's just be honest. It was a disaster when we saw him play last year in the preseason against backups. It just was. Garoppolo hitting the latter part of his career. We don't know if they're going to want to keep paying him premium backup money, right, to stay on this team for the foreseeable future. Matthew Stafford, the injury thing we just talked about. Dresser Wynn I think is part of this roster, but that's more of a camp arm. It feels like, right, let's help out a dude who's, going to play in preseason games and we can maybe help him get signed to other teams, or maybe he's a practice squad candidate like before. But I think if they do draft a quarterback, it's got to be round 4 and below for me. It can't be rounds 1, 2, or 3. Those are too valuable. Even round 4 and 5, you can consider valuable for us, right? Because we hit on those rounds, ironically, more than a lot of squads do in the NFL. So it's got to be round 4 below minimum. It can't be rounds 1, 2, or 3 because of the potential starters in those rounds, like we always seem to find in teams, franchises value. So would it be a Spencer Rattler round 4 and below? I'm not totally against that. He's got a lot of talent. Would it be the Tennessee quarterback, what's his name, Joe Milton, who's got a mega arm, and we see him on the highlight films for Combine and even his draft stuff? Guys who have potential, but you're not investing a whole lot of draft capital into. Would those draft picks make me mad? Truthfully, no, as long as they are rounds 4 and below, preferably probably round 6 and 7, if we're just being real. But those two quarterbacks I just named, Rattler and Milton, Carolina and Tennessee, they have too much talent to be that low. Truthfully, they're probably going to go rounds 3 and 4 anyway. But that's the only scenario that I'd be okay with. How about you, Tom? Shoot.
So I think the Rams have to do it. First, they have to decide, how long they want to commit to Optimus 9. Once they decide that, I think that'll clarify how they're going to approach the quarterback scenario. In this draft, Mark knows I'm all in on Jordan Travis. I think that as a late round pick, you put that kid on the roster, man, and you just let him develop. And, I think that's like a really effective approach in this day and age. Is every year you look for like a quarterback prospect, you bring them in, see what they got, let them spend a year or two, see how they develop, how they respond to NFL coaching. I mean, this kid's got uber talent. I mean, it's beyond words. And what he did at Florida State, man, he took them to an undefeated record before that gruesome injury. So I think the leadership capacity and, he hits the weight room, that arm is going to develop even more. Yeah. And he's electric in terms of, he's a modern day quarterback, man. He's mobile, but he does, Mark and I were talking about it. I said, the one thing that stands out for me, he's not the type of quarterback that when he gets flushed out, he's just running because that's the only thing he can do. He's running to buy time and make plays downfield. That's like the one thing that stands out for me. Every year you could get a prospect like that or let them develop. Let Bennett and him, fight it out. Let the two of them fight it out. And I think, the Garoppolo signing aside, which I'm never going to agree with. I don't care what anyone says. I'm never going to agree with that one. But every year, I think the Rams should take that carpe diem approach. You never know who gets released, who a team gives up on early, right? We talked about that before. That's a common trend in the NFL. So you look at the situation with Carson Wentz, man. That was a dream scenario for the Rams to get him like the way they got him and for that price. I still think they should have brought him back. I mean, I agree with Ian. I'm like, when I saw the signing, I was like, wait, he just signed for this? That wouldn't have blown up the cap? What are you guys kidding me? Nice. And he would have been not only a great insurance policy, but I think he would have just fit the roster so much better. But, using that Carson Wentz a scenario that could literally happen every year. You could, if you're patient, see what's out there, and take that best and you never know how it develops. You never know how it develops. The number of teams that have won a Super Bowl with a backup quarterback in play, think about it. It's impressive. That is an impressive list.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So, so nobody's in favor of drafting our next franchise quarterback with our first pick. We'll just sum it up that way.
Oh, I'll be upset, dude. I'll be upset. I like Penix. I like Penix, right? We all probably mutually agree pretty much that he's the third best quarterback, but why are we in the pool? I think so. I think we've talked about it. I think he's behind he's behind Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams, in my opinion.
Wow, interesting. Yeah.
I think
if he's the third best, he's certainly not going to last in 19, right? I mean, he'd have to be the fifth best. Yeah.
Yeah, but even then, it's more like, why are we pulling a Packers, Rodgers, Jordan Love situation where that capital could be used to try to win a championship? Like, what are we doing?
Exactly.
So anyway,
and I'm with you. Okay, let's move on to tight end. So throwing up the depth chart here. So Higbee and Hunter Long are on the IR, right? Well, who knows when they come back? Higbee's injury seems a little bit longer than Long's. But
it seems serious though, Tom. Truthfully, man.
Yeah,
Long does. Yeah. So both those guys are pretty well out, and so obviously the Rams bring in one of their bigger free agent signings is Colby Parkinson, right? And so he's huge, big guy, and he can block. He can hopefully they'll bring him into the passing game more than he has been in the past, and certainly hopefully we have a legitimate red zone threat, like unlike we've had from tight ends recently. Higbee, for all of his positives, was pretty poor in the red zone for some reason. So hopefully Parkinson adds that. And then we're all excited about Davis Allen, in prior conversations. So,
he looked good for a rookie.
I mean, let's just jump right. No specific questions on this group, but I mean, how do we feel? Do we draft another one, or do we, if so, where? How do we feel about going into the season with, basically we're just assume we're going to run with Parkinson and Allen. Go ahead, Paul.
Okay, I'll start it off. So I was surprised about the Parkinson signing because everything we had seen from Allen, I thought they were going to go all in on Allen and then back him up. We were. I think Mark and I were doing a mock draft, and I had joked that Seattle had released all their tight ends. Yeah, I didn't think they were going to sign Parkinson. I thought they were going to sign the other guy. I always forget his name because he was a great blocker. But in this case, I think it is a good fit. I think he is a really good fit. He's a solid blocker. He's untapped potential in the red zone. I think the combination of he and Allen, I think over the last 5 years, there's been so many great developmental tight ends to come out of the draft. It just makes sense to draft a tight end and to fill up that room. My personal favorite, Mark and I know we've been talking about these two in particular, Jared Wiley and Spam Ford out of Minnesota, University of Minnesota. I think those two would be perfect fits for the Rams. I'm hoping both Higbee and Long come back healthy because, they're just Rams. They're just, and Mark said it best that Long injury, I think we all just shook our heads and said, oh man, what more could happen to this kid? Right. He was like in a perfect situation with the Rams. But I think this is a perfect spot to draft a nice developmental tight end and bring him in just to balance out that room. I agree with Ian. I think that Higbee's injury is more serious than they're letting on. You don't spend that kind of money at tight end, as particularly a sort of unproven tight end, if you weren't seriously considering the fact that Higbee may not make it back. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, and but we got to think about. Anyway, how do you? We'll just jump around here, and then we'll talk about the bigger picture for a few minutes. But Ian, how do we feel about Parkinson and Allen holding down the fort here? Do we need more?
Yeah, I like Davis Allen last year when he stepped in. Was it perfect in the blocking surface of what they were asking him? Because obviously, look at man, it's a lot. Gap, zone, combo blocks. We ask our tight ends to do a lot, man. And for him to be a really good, reliable receiving threat in multiple games when Higbee was kind of banged up, when he was targeted in, I think, all the big games, I was happy. Now, like Paul, I was expecting him to be the guy in place of Tyler, and we'd maybe draft or sign somebody else cheap. So he's still going to play a ton, I think. And now in terms of Colby, he's super familiar with this offense. Speaking about familiarity about this Shanahan-esque offense, he was up in Seattle with Shane Waldron, our old coach, who was their coordinator for many years. So he knows his offense like the back of his hand. This is not some learning curve that he's going to have to be on to be able to learn all those things on the blocking surface and even in the passing game. Now, he's a big son of a gun. He is. He may not be this big, bulky Mark Andrews type or Njoku where he's just like, damn, what a huge human being. Just, mass-wise, but he's tall and big in his own right. I mean, he looked like he'd be an NBA player in an alternate life, right? And for him to not get targeted a ton in Seattle scheme was puzzling, but every time he was targeted, he was making good catches. And honestly, the blocking is what he made his name and what got him this contract, truthfully. He was burying people in the dirt, stealing off edges perfectly, lead blocking on power tosses and outside zones. So I think he's going to be incredibly valuable. And then Stafford wants to have a damn red zone guy. My goodness, that's where he made all his money in Detroit with all the different receivers he had there. Higbee a couple times here and there. We tried to do it with Allen Robinson. That didn't work. We tried it with Demarcus Robinson a few times when he got his starts. It didn't work out too great either. So I think he's going to be money on any type of red zone pass play because he's just taller than everybody and he's got great hands. And then obviously you can do the heavy play action with him, right? 11 or 12 personnel, and he'll sell it well and get open. So I think the signing is going to end up being solid at the minimum. He'll be a contributor. I don't know how many yards or touchdowns he's going to have. Hopefully it's a good amount, but based off the money he got, I mean, Higbee's knee injury is serious. There's just no way around it. And we just paid him too. So that's unfortunate, but I like the 1 and 2 and then the 1A, 1B potential whenever Higbee comes back, because that'd be a great 1, 2, 3 right there. But for now, Parkinson and Allen, they'll do the job for me, and we'll see what happens though. Hey,
the jump ball potential between Davis Allen and Parkinson is just off the charts. I really hope they utilize it.
We need it. OBJ was the last guy to pull that off consistently, and we won a championship because of it. Shoot.
I think I can see some 12 personnel in our future, kind of on the 10-yard line. And
we've been saying that since McVay has been here. He's not.
Well, he finally got his boys. We'll see. I mean, I mean, Bryson Hopkins and Tyler Higbee were not the size of Davis Allen and Colby Parkinson. So hopefully we'll see. But Mark, the Rams often carried 3 tight ends. Sometimes they carried 2 on their 53-man roster. But I mean, can they afford to go into this season without, maybe obviously there's always the unrestricted guys that come in and we get those guys on the practice squad and whatnot. But can they afford to go into this season with only 2 healthy tight ends?
No, I think they need a third guy. And remember, they do have 2 guys that are on futures contracts. Not sure how they feel about them. I think they'll add a tight end to the 53-man roster. I think they need to because it's such an important part of this offense. I just wanted to add one thing about something to note about Davis Allen that maybe we have forgotten about. He is just a high character class guy to have on this roster as well. If I remember correctly, the Clemson coach, I think he said that when Davis Allen was drafted, he was his favorite player ever at the University of Clemson. So that's something. And then, and Ian touched on it, and Tom, the 12 personnel with this interior offensive line, and you run those 2 tight ends and Puka and Cooper out there. If you decide to run the ball, I'm okay with that. If you want to chuck one up to Colby, I'm okay with that too. It just, man, you could really play some smash mouth football with that offensive line and those 2 wide receivers and 2 tight ends.
Yeah, I like that.
Good stuff. Okay, moving on to running back. So this depth chart here. Kyron Williams, Ronnie Rivers, and Zach Evans. So, Paul, I mean, let me ask you this. Does Kyron stay healthy this year? And not only from the standpoint of, because he's been injury prone, but also does McVay, McVay loves to run his running backs into the ground. And, that whole coaching tree, they love to run all their players into the ground. And so does McVay take a little bit of a load off Kyren? He's not really the, atypical number one back, right? He only came into this league as a blocking, third down, receiving back, right? Does McVay run him into the ground given how productive he's been? And right now on our depth chart, a lack of depth, or does McVay go easy and play the long game with Kyren?
So, I mean, the track record for running backs under McVay has not been stellar. That's for sure. Just ask Cam Akers.
Yeah.
And Todd Gurley.
Gurley, right? And and Sony Michel, right?
Shout out to Sony. He was awesome for us.
He was the man, underrated. Like they should have brought it back immediately. But Iron Kyren. So let's go in reverse. So Zach Evans has completed his redshirt year under the Rams, as McVay always does with the younger players. Yeah. So hopefully we'll get a lot more of Zach Evans this year. We might even see him on kickoff returns, hopefully, or something like that. Kid is definitely one of Mark's favorites. I know when they drafted him. Kid is explosive. Kid is tough as nails. Rivers really impressed me last year, too. I mean, he showed a lot of moxie. I mean, for me, I've always been surprised that the Rams have not brought in that, like, one sledgehammer back that they could use for, like, tough yardage situations, red zone scenarios. Iron Kyren has shown in the red zone that he is straight money. You give him the rock, it's in. And that was one thing that really stood out for me about him last year.
And Paul, why we couldn't do that in the playoff game? My goodness, it was maybe.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly my point. So I think, but you have to keep him fresh. I mean, that's a lot of carries for any running back. You need to have a two-headed, three-headed monster. Absolutely. Listen, look at the interior of that Ram line. If you're not going to run the ball, then you're wasting a ton of cash. So I really think within this group of three, and it's going to be interesting how they work it out. I think Rolls-Royce signed with a different team just this morning.
Yeah, Cowboys.
With the Cowboys, right?
Cowboys.
I got to tell you, this draft is loaded with late round running backs, man. And I'm partial to that kid, Melton out of Georgia, man. I think that kid is a beast and will just hammer defenses and would be a perfect complement to Kyren. But there are a lot of other like sleeper running backs. I was just talking to the guys today, Ram Nation, Dylan Laube, the kid from out here on Long Island, played for New Hampshire, who can out of the backfield is just unstoppable, just a pass catching monster, man. Yeah. So there's a lot of ways to go. I would go young here, but you never know. The Rams do really well after this draft, and that's where I think a lot of people are sort of getting caught up, is that the Rams are going to play phase 2 and phase 3 of free agency perfectly. That's where they live and breathe. Phase 2 and phase 3 of free agency. And I can see a low-cost veteran running back coming in to spell Kyren Williams. If they're smart, keep this kid healthy, Optimus 9, Iron Kyren healthy in the playoffs, worth its weight in gold. But they gotta improve this running back room. These two kids are great, no question about it, bang for the buck. However, when push comes to shove, you have to be able to give the rock to somebody who's done it before. That's just my opinion behind Iron Kyren.
Gotcha. And Mark, is Rivers a legit number 2 running back in this league?
I think he is, from what I've seen. We barely missed a beat with him in there. I'm really happy with him as a backup running back. Yeah. Answer emphatic yes on that question.
Yes. Okay, and Ian, does Zach Evans have a breakout year after almost kind of like a redshirt year? I mean, this guy came in out of Texas. He was one of the top running backs in Texas. He fell, because he transferred and didn't play well. He had some trouble. So this guy, had all he's one of these guys, right? Has all the potential in the world. And, they can either break good or break bad. And, so far we haven't really didn't see anything from him last year, but we still holding out hope for the Zach Evans sighting.
Yeah, I mean, look at it. It's all going to be dependent on what he does in camp. Let's just be real. The preseason games, he's going to get snaps, and that'll matter, obviously, as well. But if he's not earning the trust of Coach McVay, then who gives a crap how talented he is? That's really the matter of a fact on being in any role on this offense, right? Can you be trusted when you're out there? And they did not trust him. We obviously seen the talent coming out of Ole Miss, right? We saw the burst, we saw the acceleration, we've seen it in flashes in preseason last year, but he cannot be trusted with the playbook, quote unquote, and then obviously in the blocking service of protecting the quarterback, he was unreliable. So if those things don't change, then nothing will change for his playing time. But if he improves in those areas, we definitely could see him in the rotation, because to Paul's point, and we need as many running backs as possible, because I'm sorry, I love Kyron, but damn, 2 years in a row, you're missing significant time. Not good. You've only been in the league 2 years, everybody. That's not great. Ronnie, he's been out, he's barely getting a chance. He had a serious injury where he missed time. Not great. And then we have, Evans, who I just said, the coaching staff did not trust him. So again,
everybody's in agreement. We're going to go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
No. Again, it's all going to be about trust, but I still think we draft somebody anyway. We need to. That position gets too injured and things can go into the hellhole fast if, all these guys get hurt again.
Yeah, and I mean, they drafted Kyron when there was still a perceived, somewhat of a need, and so they dropped all the way down to the 4th round, right? They went all out for a running back. I think they do like their 6th and 7th round running backs. So we're all in agreement that they're going to draft a running back. I mean, Mark, your special assistant says absolutely positively draft a running back every year, right?
Yeah, and the Rams have followed that pattern for the most part. And again, when we talk about all these position groups, we're going to have a running theme here, at least from my perspective. I'm okay with what we got. Every position group, I would not be heartbroken if we didn't draft in any of these positions. But
kind of offense only.
Offense, yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, I still think, you try to add a running back every year. It's just a good thing to do, a smart thing to do, because as you guys have already mentioned, they get banged up, they get hurt. It's, one of the toughest positions to play physically in the NFL. And sure. And hey, I just wanted to add one note on Zach Evans. Another thing, as far as the trust issue, he did have his draft profile did note that he had a fumbling issue, and that could be part of it as well.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
I'm Alex Rodriguez.
And I'm Jason Kelly.
From Bloomberg, this is The Deal. Each week, you'll hear us in conversation with business icons.
This show will explore deal-making across sports, media, and entertainment.
That is a harsh lesson in business.
Sports is not as simple as bringing a bunch of big names together.
I didn't want to do another stomp you out speech.
It opened up so many more doors.
The show is called The Deal.
Listen to The Deal.
Listen to The Deal on Spotify.
Why take one vacation with the family when you could take all of them? With Royal Caribbean, you don't just go to the beach. You visit a private island and race down the tallest water slide in North America. You don't just go for a road trip. You ATV and zip line through the jungle. You don't just go somewhere new. You rappel down waterfalls and discover ancient temples. Because this isn't just any vacation. This is all the vacations. Come seek the Royal Caribbean. Ships Registry, Bahamas.
With threats to our nation waiting around every corner, adaptability is more important than ever. When conditions change without notice, quick strategic thinking is crucial. And with obstacles consistently impending, determination is essential in overcoming them. It's this willingness, decisiveness, and resilience that sets Marines apart. With our fighting spirit, we don't just fight battles, we win them. Marines are the constant our nation counts on to fight the unknown. And through adaptable problem solving, we do just that. Learn more at marines.com.
And what's interesting, if you go back to Cam Akers and you look at the running back room now, it looks like the Rams are committed to a very distinct profile of type of running back in terms of size and skill set. And if you take a look at the commonality between Williams, Rivers, and Evans in terms of their size and everything else. So it looks like they have a particular profile that they are most comfortable with in the running back room, which is really, really interesting to me. But yeah, it's going to be interesting.
It's also an emerging profile after the Todd Gurley dead cap hit, even though he did have a couple of good years for us, and the Cam Akers debacle, first and second round picks. That they're definitely viewing right in line with the rest of the league, viewing the running back as a devalued asset and going after guys in the later rounds and having a feeling like they can get a Pacheco or somebody like that, and they can do almost as good of a job as an early round guy. So
what college did Pacheco go to, Tom?
Somewhere in New Jersey.
Mark, what college was that?
Rutgers.
I thought it was Princeton, New Jersey, right?
Rutgers guy. Okay, moving on to wide receiver. So let's throw up that.
The controversial group for whatever reason.
Let's see here. Next slide. Okay, a wide receiver group. All right. Okay, so we got Kupp, Nacua, and Demarcus Robinson. That was, with a healthy Kupp and Nacua, et cetera. I mean, and then we got Atwell, Skoranek. They brought back Tyler Johnson. Remember, he had a great preseason last year. A lot of people thought he was going to make the 53. He just really, really stood out. And then Xavier Smith, who also had a good camp, I would say, more than preseason. He just didn't get a lot of snaps. But so I have a specific question for each of you, and then we'll go on into the bigger picture and so forth. So, okay, I'll start with Ian. Does Cooper Kupp have a bona fide bounce back year, as Puka Nacua has suggested he may?
What are we qualifying as a bounce back? What is that? What is that bar for him?
Coming healthy and vintage Kupp, right? I'm not saying he's going to win the Triple Crown again or whatever, but legitimate number one wide receiver, along with like his productivity was, back in the day, right? I mean, he's been injured for 2 years. So essentially, if he's healthy, we'll assume he's going to have a bounce back year. So maybe a better question is, does Kupp stay healthy and have a productive year, Cooper Kupp style?
I mean, based on just recent history, I mean, how can you say yes? I think he doesn't, truthfully. I mean, I'm just being objective about it. I don't wish that. I don't hope for that. But I mean, guys, he's had season-ending injuries or injuries that have affected his season almost half his career, right? We think 2018, the torn ACL, we probably win the Super Bowl if he played, but that's in an alternate universe where we didn't get to experience that. Sad. Sorry, everybody. I wish we did. Then we go 2019. It was like, okay, this is what we missed in that playoff run to win the championship. It was awesome. 2020, he gets injured in the wild card game. I forgot what exactly was wrong with his knee. I forgot it was some weird injury. And then he can't play in round two. If he plays in round two, we have a good chance to beat the Packers, but wasn't available. 2021 is historic. We win a championship. Shocker, right? And then 2022, he has the tightrope surgery on his ankle. He snaps his ankle, all the ligaments in that, and it was awful. He missed the rest of the season. No bueno. Last season, hamstring, ankle again, knee here and there, and then he's just not the same. So based off all this recent history, guys, since he's been around, how can I objectively say that he's going to be 100% healthy and be back to his full capacity? I just can't. I don't wish that. Again, I hope I am wrong and he is Triple Crown Kupp again. We need it. But, Puka Nacua is the go-to guy now. He was the go-to guy all of last year, and he was able to withstand and hold up to that mantle of a number one receiver. So I think the times are changing. Puka will be the featured guy now. Yes, will McVay call plays for Kupp? Of course. Kupp is still an awesome route runner. But he's going to be this, oh my God, we can't stop him like 2021. I think that moment happened, that season happened, and it's not going to return. The wrong side of 30 for receivers is real, just like running backs. There's few and far that have been able to conquer that, right? Maybe a Bruce, maybe a Holt in Rams history. But they're Hall of Famers, and Hall of Famers are the only ones that seem to be able to advance and be good past 30. So long story short, no, and I don't like saying that.
Yeah, Holt's still a Hall of Fame snub. Unfortunately, he keeps making the finals every year, but he'll get in hopefully one of these years. Okay, next question to Mark. Does Puka keep it rolling? Does he continue his just dominance going into a sophomore season?
Well, I think that's going to be a function of how much Cup contributes. But I think he will. His numbers may actually be slightly off compared to last year, and I don't think that'd be necessarily a bad thing. But he's going to continue contributing at a very high level, I think. I don't expect him to necessarily match those numbers, though, and I don't think that should be I don't think it's a fair expectation. It's not going to be a sophomore jinx, nothing like that. But yeah, he's going to be. He sounds like he's very confident and very eager to improve upon his performance last year. And I think he will. Numbers wise, who knows? Probably be a little bit off. I can't expect him to really match that year two.
Right.
Yeah, that's tough.
And Paul, next question. Demarcus Robinson has really been our first legitimate number 3 receiver, even though it was only for part of the season where they really just featured him at the end. And he was so productive. And does Demarcus Robinson continue to make a difference? And how much in terms of staff seems to love him? I mean, talk about Demarcus. They brought him back. Seems like it was important. It was one of their first signings. Talk about the importance of Demarcus Robinson in this offense.
2 words: Robert Woods. Right? Very similar type of dynamic on this team. I mean, they're two different players. I mean, Robert Woods is 1-on-1, man. That dude was just awesome. But look at the difference in the offense when Demarcus Robinson hit the field. Right? It was a legitimate number 3 threat. So, and when you do take a look at the questions that were posed just before that one, I think last year was tough because I don't think they had time to really define the roles for the receivers. Right? Robinson got into the starting lineup at pretty much past the halfway point.
Right.
Nobody was expecting Nakua to break out except for, So, and then of course Cup was coming back from the injury. So I think here's the thing. First thing about Cup, if I could comment about Cup, then I'll go back to DR, is that the one thing that was missing last year from Cup is that explosiveness at the top of the routes. That's what made him special. On those choice routes, when it was time to make a decision, he came out of those cuts. There was no loss of speed. It was just complete acceleration out of that, and that's what made him unstoppable. And that's what they're trying to, I guess, get him back to. So that's number one. Number two is that his role might have to be refined a little bit. That's all. Because one of the things that really stood out to me last year, they had a hard time getting the rock to Cup and Nakua in games, right? It was either one had a great game and the other was silent, and that's not a good way to approach it. The one thing in Cup's favor is that Nakua is such a vicious and willing blocker. That's going to save a lot of the wear and tear that on Cup, hopefully, so that he won't have to do a lot of that. Robinson is also, that's the other thing about DeMarcus. People sleep on the fact that kid can block, man. Demarcus Robinson can block, and he wants to block. So you have 2 receivers that can take a little bit of that wear and tear off Cup. So the Rams have to really balance it so that all 3 of these players get a chance to really have a chance to cut into the defense. And I think that's really – so I think having an opportunity to have all 3 players in, a full camp, full offseason to prepare, define their roles – have them work their way into the system, I think is going to be huge for the Rams. I also think, look, this Tyler Johnson signing was a really smart move on the Rams' part. That kid definitely did show a lot to me last year. I think it's going to pay huge dividends. You got the SCO man, he does his thing, right? A fullback in wide receiver jersey, right? He loves to throw the body around. I mean, you always love a player like that. I definitely think within the first 3 rounds, the Rams are going to go after a wide receiver that they really like. No question about it. They're going to round. So look, you got Xavier Smith. Xavier Smith was signed because of punt return duties. That's how he made the roster, is kick return duties. And I think, the Rams are going to have to make a decision on Tutu. This is, This is the final hurrah for this kid.
And Paul, real quick, and Paul, I think Tutu can play. I mean, feel free to chime in, please, anybody. I mean, I think he could play. It's just the problem with him is that he's just small. He's small. That's literally the issue because he can.
How much fun was it to watch him block though? Because everybody has to block as a wide receiver,
and he could seal people off.
It was so fun to watch him flying into the blocks. Yeah, it was great.
And he could do it. Was it DeMarcus Robinson level? Of course not, because that's a size issue. Right. That's literally Tutu's issue is that he is small. That is why he is not touching the field more. It's unfortunate because I think he can play. He has route running ability. He's not Tavon Austin where the route tree was limited. He is not Tavon Austin where he was not crispy in routes or he was only fast once he had the ball in his hands. Tutu is fast all the time and he can run routes and he can block to a decent degree. But again, the size issue is what is holding him back from cracking this lineup. And I think he's going to get traded. I think he's going to get traded.
I think he's going to get traded on draft day.
He's going to get traded before week 4 easily because I think we're drafting receivers in round 1, 2, or 3. It's happening. There's too many good ones. There's too many bigger body guys.
Too much value. Way too much value.
There's just guys who are screaming to be in a McVay offense in different roles who could fill in the Nakua role, fill a Cup role, Robinson, or even a Tutu for the speed. And I think Tutu's gone just like Van was, before whenever that was, week 4, week 5 too, right?
Interesting. Yeah.
So I mean, it's unfortunate, but this is reality.
One quick thing about Tutu Atwell, which always sort of cuts me deep because Creed Humphrey was there, but I won't keep bringing that up.
I know.
But when Tutu Atwell was drafted, because I remember his profile. You know who led the country in splash plays? Tutu Atwell. When he was actually picked, he led the country in number of plays, 15 yards or more, when he got drafted that year. So, in like small doses, if he can do that, which is I think what the Rams had envisioned for him, to be that 4 receiver that when he hits the field, let's go vertical, let's take it to the house, that type. So find
he did
that
last year, right? He did that last year, didn't he?
But not with enough consistency.
He was a spot player for sure. But at one point, he had some statistic. He was leading the league in touchdown, reception yardage, or I don't know.
That's what he did at Louisville, right?
Yeah.
So the one thing I will say for Ram Nation, look at the yellow, and one word, and Stafford smiling from ear to ear, clutch. You got 3 wide receivers that at any given down, 3rd down, 4th down, whatever it is, look at the yellow. Would you hesitate to throw it to any one of these 3? D-Rob, Cup, Nakua. That is something that the Rams have. The starting 3 right here, they are clutch. They can move the chains. They can put it into the end zone when they need to. I think the 3 of them healthy to start the season. Man, McVay has to get the team rolling, get his act together. Do not let up from Jump Street. From week 1, try to accumulate as many wins as possible so that you can keep the team fresh down the stretch. The NFC West is there for the taking. Smash them in the mouth early. That's it. And take that division early. And I look at the starting 3, man. Wow. Stafford is going to have a field day.
He better. And real quick, just to add real quick about the drafting, guys, Robinson, Atwell, and Skoranek are all on expiring contracts. You think we're not drafting a receiver in rounds 1, 2, or 3? You're crazy. Cup, if he doesn't perform well, they'll get rid of him because we're a savage organization. We'll get rid of anybody, no matter what you've done for us. Let's just keep it a buck. So we're drafting a receiver in rounds 1, 2, or 3. It's happening. It's happening.
And Ram Nation, just take a look at the videos of Cup and Nakua working out together. Tell me they don't look serious. They got business on their mind. They're going to take care of business.
I'm happy about that.
Yeah, Mark, I wanted to, this is this receiver group gives me the biggest, as it relates to the draft, the biggest kind of quandary is this year we look like we're set, right? We got a 1, 2, and a 3. We got some legitimate backups. Is a rookie really going to step in? And we're going to get another Nakua and really going to step in and be that kind of a guy. Or so in other words, we're talking about from quarterback's perspective, like we need to focus on our better picks in terms of filling in this year to go for it, right? We don't know how long Kupp is going to be healthy, or Stafford and some of these other guys, right? We got to push the chips in. And so you don't start drafting for the future. But on the other hand, like Ian mentions, this particular position group that has has all the starters penciled in, also next year, is in dire need of help. So where does the Rams go from here in this draft on the wide receiver room?
That's for me.
Yeah.
I was averse to drafting a wide receiver early, but this team is so reliant. It's going to be reliant on putting a lot of points up on the board, just kind of like what we thought was going to happen last year. It didn't really play out that way. No. But, I've seen people on the internet, social media, and I think maybe a couple of you guys, I'm not even sure, I've heard this various places, let's just put 40 points up every game and we'll be good. And this team really could, but if some one of these receivers goes down, it changes everything, right? So I don't have a problem with drafting a wide receiver early. I'm not, should we package picks and move up and get Rome Odunze perhaps? Or do we hang back and maybe move up in the second round to get Ladd McConkey? Then there's the guys, Paul and I have talked about a few, third and fourth round wide receivers. There's some guys there. Yeah. So I think you might be right. We might need to add a receiver for insurance this year, because after those those top three, I don't know. And, Kupp's career may be winding down. Sorry to say.
Guys, we made an offer to Mike Evans not too long ago. Does everyone remember that? I know he signed, quickly because Buccaneers gave him a lot of money, but we were confirmed to have made an offer to Mike Evans. Receivers on our minds. I mean, let's just come on.
Yeah, and I will add one other thing.
That guy
maybe we should
burnt the Rams when they played him. So
he's awesome, man. He's one of the best receivers of his generation for sure. I don't think that's a debate.
Yeah, he's a 1,000-yard receiver for hire.
I did want to add one thing. I'm not opposed to trading Tutu, but could he be the answer in the punt return, kickoff return game now that especially the kickoff return game, now that they've changed the rules? And I know he's probably going to get hurt the first time he gets popped, but that may be the Rams thinking.
Gotcha. All right, let's move on to our last offensive position group, offensive line. So, I mean, this is as good as the offensive line has looked going into a season. I think it even looks better than 21. I mean, obviously we had big wit there, but I mean, that year, what was it, Corbett and it was Allen, and we had who was the other guard? He ended up going Edwards. Yeah, I mean, and Havenstein. So I mean, these are the guys, and so I feel like this is it's a much bigger line. The Rams have realized like we need some girth, right? We don't need to be this small little nimble group to get out on the outside zone scheme, and let's commit to some gap and so forth. So we got Alaric Jackson, Jonah Jackson signed over in free agency, Steve Avila, Kevin Dotson, Rob Havenstein. So 3 specific questions, and then we'll get into the bigger conversation. So I'll start with Paul. Paul, specifically, the guys that came in last year that made such a difference, right? Steve Avila, our second round draft pick, and Kevin Dotson, we got for a bag of peanuts from the Steelers.
Thank you, Pittsburgh.
Guys, thank you. Yeah, we tip our hat to Pittsburgh. So they made such a difference for us last year, obviously, on this offensive line. So, but the question is, it was their first year with the Rams, right? They wildly performed their even Avila, coming in as a solid draft pick, right? So my question is, do Avila and Dotson keep it up? Do they continue their essential dominance at their positions, even with Avila moving to center?
Yeah, I think they do. I was surprised that they moved Avila to center. I thought they would have gone and brought in a veteran center or invested heavily in the center, leave Avila where he was. But either way, Big Steve's going to be able to handle it. He's played it before. It's a no-brainer for him. I think that when you just look at this line, and just to point something out, what were the two positions on the O-line that the Rams traditionally never spend money? Guard. We talked about it for how many years? It's been a real shift for the Rams. What's the other position? Safety. The Rams spend money on safety this year. So it's a very interesting shift when you take a look at the way the Rams attack this season. And I think it's really, really interesting. All championship teams, regardless of sport, they say the same thing. First thing in every coaching clinic they teach you, you build up the middle. And that's exactly what the Rams did. They went back to
Dotson. Dotson makes it, he stays with he continues his form
on the right side with the Havitstein. Yeah, absolutely. Look on either side of him. The Havitstein monster on one side, and you got Big Steve on the other.
Yeah,
man, that gives you a lot of room for error. Not that his play is gonna drop off. I think his play is gonna be so. Number one, he's got job security now, right? He's got the contract, right? He knows that the Rams are going all in. So I think, in my opinion, he's got familiarity with the system now. All arrows are pointing up, in my opinion. Absolutely. So for me, the right side of the Rams line is really my comfort zone. If I were, the OC for the Rams, that's my comfort zone right there. Center to the right. Not that there's anything wrong with Jackson, the Jackson 2 on the other side. But what I'm saying is that if you look at this right side, that looks rock solid to me. I think Dotson's going to have another Pro Bowl year.
Mark, how much does Jonah Jackson add to this offensive line?
Well, obviously the Rams are familiar with him. They saw him. Actually, they didn't get to play against him in the playoff game, but Stafford's familiar with him. He seems like a great get. It's just what they needed. One more interior offensive lineman. And man, I was talking to some friends at work. I was trying to explain to them that the Rams have the best interior offensive line in the league. That could be bluster, but they're probably top 3 or 4. And they just waved me off. Oh, you're just a Ram homer. You don't, sure, whatever. But I really think it might be true, But yeah, adding Jonah Jackson, I feel really good about that. And
huge individual.
Yeah. And the Dotson trade, that's payback for the Jerome Bettis trade. Take that, Steeler fans.
That's the first thing that popped into my mind too.
That's great. I love it. Okay. Next question to Ian. Let's talk about this depth. Is the depth good enough? We got Noteboom, who's still on he took a little bit of a pay cut. I think he's down to $6 million or something, which is what he would have gotten if they'd cut him. So he just basically took the same amount of money to stay on the team.
Yeah.
And then a bunch of dudes, right? I mean, all of these guys have
no way of saying it.
shown up every now and then. Like, okay, Grant Miller showed up, Zach Thomas showed up, McClendon maybe, just a new draft pick. Logan Bruss hasn't shown up. And McAllister. So do we have what about the depth on this offensive line?
So Noteboom's a starter, right? But he's not a starter on this team. But every time he is spot starting, it's good, right? I don't think that's debatable either. So that's nice, right? To be your sixth man on the O-line who can play guard or tackle on either side, which is, that's every coach's or offensive line room's dream, is that sixth man to be able to play anywhere and be quality.
Yeah,
so
that swing guard,
swing tackle. I was blanking on the name right now. Thank you. But outside of that, we've seen Thomas eat it on Monday Night Football terribly. We've seen Bruss get bodied by third stringers in preseason football. McClendon, McAllister, and Miller are all unproven. Could they be good? Who knows? We'll find out. And then again, in camp, that'll tell a lot with how much they're playing. And if, McVay's comments in press conference, we need to see more from these guys. Because, those things will be asked appropriately by our reporters who ask good questions, I think, most days. And right now, outside of Noteboom, again, the depth is not good, which is why we're meeting with a Fuaga from Oregon State, who is a mauler in the run game. Why we are meeting with Barnhart at Michigan, who is a Noteboom-esque type of player who played everywhere on the Michigan O-line. Why we're meeting with the Washington offensive tackle, Troy Fountainu. So we're meeting with quality guys, not just because, let's just meet with these dudes for fun. These are guys who have all played in a gap scheme run game who are big, nasty offensive linemen. So I think the Rams are aware that the depth ain't where it needs to be. So again, for me, not good enough. We need to address it, just like a lot of other spots, I feel.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, the depth is pretty questionable. A lot of blue, not a lot of blue chip.
Yeah, that's correct. And again, look, if everyone on YouTube, just pay attention to all the yellow highlight starters, and obviously orange for Jackson, Jonah Jackson being the free agent acquisition. What a great old line. But if any one of those guys go out, right, Nopin would slide in. How about one more goes out? How screwed are we with this current group right here? We're in bad shape. Let's just keep it real. So let's hopefully we get some quality linemen in this upcoming draft, or a free agent signing, a post-June cut, right? We'll see.
We'll see. Good stuff. And then, so in terms of drafting, where are we at, Paul? What pick of ours are we moving to backup O-line?
Well, I think the Rams are lucky. I mean, there are a lot of, particularly at center, there are some really, really Tanner Bartolini's one that really stands out for me. The kid from Penn State stands out for me. All those guys can play center and guard as well. So I think they can go young. I think they are going to supplement whoever they draft with a veteran. There's no question about it. You have to, particularly in this day and age. The Rams are highly dependent on their O-line, just like any other team. The Rams throw the ball a ton. To play on the Rams O-line, I think a lot of the Rams O-linemen don't get a fair shake. It is really tough to play in the Rams scheme. They throw the ball a ton, right? When they do run it, it's not with a lot of consistency, so it makes it very hard on the O-lineman. Just ask any O-lineman, right? So they've invested a lot of money with run-blocking types, which I think is interesting. Think about their signings. These are run-blocking types. So, the signings say we're going to run the rock. We'll see how the play calling follows. But, they're also going to throw the ball. I mean, everything is lining up like they're going to go for balance, a balanced attack, which I think would be great for the Rams, right? Yeah. And then you just turn it up in the playoffs. You just turn it up to 11 in the playoffs, right? And let Stafford do his thing. But, I think the Rams definitely have to improve their depth because, the depth here is beyond questionable. It is it's really shaky. Ian was respectful to our backups. It's shaky to say the least. McClendon is, he's a good prospect, came out of Georgia. He was a swing player. He could play guard, tackle. Bruss, we know, is trying to salvage his career after that injury. Zach Thomas, I won't comment on. I mean, I hope the kid turns it around, but I mean, that was scary when he was out there. So I think a good IOL, interior O lineman with a veteran that can handle maybe the two interior slots, center if they need to, I think would be the perfect signing for the Rams in phase 2, phase 3. Supplement that with some quality draft picks. I think one sleeper is the kid that we had drafted a while, AJ Curry from Michigan State, man. I'd love to see that kid get a little bit more burn, see what he can do. He's been
I left him off of this, didn't I?
But I would love to see. I mean, I don't know if you guys agree. I would love to see him get some burn. I remember when they picked him. He's got the size. He's been in the system for a little bit. Let's see what he can do. I think there's no downside to that, but I think that's the way the Rams should attack it. Play it smart. And one veteran signing supplemented by maybe one or two drafted players.
Gotcha. Anything else to add, guys? Offensive line?
Oh, man. I mean, if this group stays healthy, I mean, it should be a top 5 unit. There's just no question. I mean, there's no excuse for it not to be. How about that? It's just – I'll be upset if they're anything less, truthfully. The money that's invested in this group, from Havenstein to Dotson to Jonah Jackson, and then the young prowess of Steve Avila, and then obviously Jackson being serviceable. There's just no excuse for this unit not to be top 5.
Yeah, there was a lot of film last year of Avila at the guard position picking off secondary pass rushers for his buddies, and at the center position, I think he maybe have even more opportunities to do that. So I'm looking forward to that. He's got a little bit of nastiness in him when it comes to that stuff.
Oh, yeah. I think there's going to be a lot of pancakes going on, a lot of pancakes being handed out by the big dog But one thing that stands out in this O-line, gentlemen, I don't know if you agree, man, but look at the leadership on this line. I think Alaric showed me a lot over the last 2 seasons. He was outspoken. He backed up what he said, right? He's look at him. He's in the starting lineup. Listen, he called everybody out. He said, stop running these guys out there. When I'm standing right here, give me a shot, and he backed it up. And, you got proven guards on both sides. You got the Havenstein monster. I mean, did you guys see him at the press conference? Man, cool as a cucumber, knew the right thing to say. You talk about a veteran, and Big Steve in the middle just fits right in. The leadership across this line, once this unit gels, right? Because they're playing together as a unit for the first time. Once this unit gels, this offense is going to be off the chart. It's going to be like 99 all over again.
Yeah, and you compare this offensive line to the 49ers offensive line. It's quite a contrast.
And hopefully, like we've always said, Ram Nation, this is my, I'll say it till I get blue in the face. TOP, Rams control the time of possession. It's a wrap. Game over.
Yeah, it needs to be that way. It's killing 2 birds with 1 stone. We can demoralize our defensive opponent and then protect Stafford as well, and the play action will be better. It's this multi-layered of why that's a good idea, Paul. So hopefully Coach McVay doesn't have the beginning of the season whack play calling like he did this last year, which was killing me. So we'll see.
He just get a little bit in his own head. So I want to we're going to next question, surprise question, not on the board. We're going to take down the depth chart. And so somebody mentioned this earlier, but I want you all to think of it. I'm going to ask a question, write down your answer, no changing it as we go through the answers, right? So who is going to be the kickoff returner for the Rams next year in this new kickoff scheme, which, for people not listening, people that aren't familiar with it, it's kind of a very similar to what the XFL did and the UFL is doing this year. There's some slight changes, but essentially the offensive and defensive line up, around the 25-yard line, and the kick returner receives the ball. Nobody can move until he touches it. And then it's like a running play where the guy's getting maybe, an extra 5 yards of start time to run the ball. So it's not like the old, running kickoff returner he has this huge amount of time to pick where he's going and so forth and so on. It's much more like a running play, right? That's how I would describe it. With an offensive line, a defensive line, we're going to see. We won't get into all the details of how those special teams units are going to change on the kickoff, but they will. You're not just going to run out your normal special teams guys anymore. But anyway, having said that, everybody, I want you to pick, given that, kind of a lead up of what this is like, who is the ideal guy on the Rams roster currently to be the guy? Who would be your pick, at least to give him first shot, or who you think could be most successful? Or is there nobody on the team and we got to find another guy? Okay, I give you a couple seconds to figure out your answer. If you're ready, go ahead and chime in. Give the other guys a chance to think.
Well, I feel like we're on Final Jeopardy.
Yeah, it's obviously going to be they're going to re-sign Austin Trammell, and he'll be the guy. No, I think I'm going to cheat. I think if it's a guy on the roster, the way you described it, it might be Ronnie Rivers. But it's very likely. I don't know if you give that job to a rookie. I hate it when you give it to a rookie. So I'm going to roll with Ronnie Rivers.
Ronnie Rivers. Who said Tutu earlier, though?
I was talking about Tutu, but the way you described it, I haven't given it a lot of thought.
Okay, gotcha.
You describe it as the way you described it and characterized it, I changed my mind.
Yeah, it is a little bit more of it is definitely more of a running back oriented kind of a look. Looking for holes. There's schemes on the blocking and the whole 9 yards. Okay, Ian, do you have a guy?
Yeah, I was gonna go with Ronnie Rivers, but I don't think it'll be him at the end of the day. So I guess I'm cheating as well. If I had to choose somebody on the roster right now, I'm choosing Ronnie Rivers because based on things that have been said about how this is gonna unfold with this kick return, is that there's gonna be a lot of pulling guards, quote unquote, right? There's gonna be a lot of lead blocking,
Right.
run-esque looks. And
Yes.
to your point earlier, Tom, I mean, I think running backs will be best suited for that, right? The vision, to be able to follow your lead blockers, right, on the kick return in this new format. So I think if there had to be somebody, it would probably be him. But I truthfully think that there'll be somebody that is specialty drafted in our draft that could probably fill that role, because that is going to be a unique role that's going to have to be sought after, identified, and then hopefully drafted and or signed in free agency. So Ronnie Rivers for current, but I think somebody that gets drafted is going to fill that role, truthfully.
So you think, gotcha. Paul, what's your thoughts?
I think the other aspect of these kickoff returns is about field position too. So even if they don't take it to the house, you got to establish field position. So I agree. I think you're going to see a lot of these running back types, smaller running back types, what we used to call all-purpose backs, now have a more elevated role. So I think the Rams are definitely going to draft another running back, particularly with that in mind, and also the ability to. I think right now I would go with. I think Zach Evans. I give him a shot. I give him a shot to win that spot. I think McVay has shown that he's not going to take a chance at anybody that's even a fringe starter at special teams to get hurt. And if he's going to give it to somebody, the closest person I can see who has the experience and who has done it before and has the explosiveness is that kid. And it's worth the shot to see what he has, especially if you're going to bring in another running back anyway. It's no real threat to the depth chart. So that's probably the way. But I do think they're going to draft somebody particularly in mind. And shout out to Dylan Lowby from Long Island. Hopefully he winds up in Horns.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I have to echo exactly your sentiments, but you took the words right out of my mouth. I had Zach Evans written down for those exact same reasons, like give the guy a shot to contribute something. He's probably not going to see the field a lot this year in scrimmage plays. And the other thing is, I mean, you got to believe it's fresh in their mind that Iron Kyren got hurt on the first kickoff return year before last, right? His rookie year. He goes down as a kickoff returner and could not, have any kind of a year that year, and then comes back this year. So I think all of those things are in play for the Rams. We're not going to risk anybody. It's just not going to happen. So I think it'll be a Zach Evans, or like you guys say, somebody that that they draft. But I don't think it's going to be one of these receivers. I just don't think that this kickoff return play is suited for one of those guys to try and read a hole. I mean, I was thinking Skoranek because he's played
and he's done it before.
Yeah, he's played that fullback role, and he's like your point, Paul, he might be able to get on an average an extra 3 yards or something like that, but he just doesn't have that breakaway speed. And I do believe that in this particular scheme, we are going to see a lot of guys breaking through those holes, and there aren't a lot of guys. There's no secondary per se in this deal, right? I mean, you got a bunch of dudes up on a line of scrimmage within a 5-yard thing, and you don't have free safeties. You got your kicker back there. Another thing that I was thinking about, and I had heard this as well, is that the kicker might not be the kicker, right? The kicker might be find your best safety or cornerback or whatever linebacker that can kick a ball 45 yards. It doesn't matter how high it is. You don't need airtime to get guys down the field. It could be a line drive for all he matters, as long as it goes in the air and lands in the this reception zone that they call it. And but I mean, I'm telling you right now, you're going to see a lot of crazy stuff. You're going to find some dudes in the cornerback group and the safety group, in particular linebacker group, that can kick the ball a long way, right? There certainly could never be a kicker or a kickoff guy because they can't get it high enough and long enough in the current, the old rules. Or they certainly can't be like kick a field goal. Maybe in a pinch they could. Maybe they're like the backup guy. But I think that's going to happen because that guy is going to be really important, and those kickers can't tackle worth a shit, as we know.
That's true, yeah.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. And Yeah, I think people are going to start looking at those guys going, hey, we're looking at a couple of safeties to bring in. Any chance you can kick? So anyway, something to think about.
I think that's why there's been so much interest in the NFL about these rugby players.
Yeah,
because they can kick, they can tackle, they can also run it back, and they're used to running through a crowd. So that's why I think there's been so much interest in the rugby style player that there've been a lot of teams have been trying to audition. So it makes a lot of sense.
That's a good point. It does make a lot of sense.
I really thought if the NFL really wanted to juice up the scoring and make it exciting, they should have turned the kickoffs into free kicks. Let the punters actually do a little bit more, because you only see them 3 times a game. Let you turn the kickoffs into free kicks. That would have been exciting.
Well, it depends on which team you are. If you're, I don't know who punted a lot last year. Some punters got 8-10 punts a game. Depends on your team.
Panthers, looking at you, Panthers.
Yeah, looking at you. Yeah. No, I'm with you, Paul. I'm with you. But that kickoff, I feel like the NFL, like they want to preserve the skeleton, they want to preserve the bones of the game, and there's a kickoff after a touchdown and a field goal, but let's just get the thing right. And I mean, before we do away with the whole damn thing, let's at least do our best to make it exciting.
I don't know if this particular system achieves what they wanted. I know NFLPA was afraid about losing, and rightfully so, about losing jobs, and they were absolutely right about that. And I just think they could have. It's not in line with the trajectory of the game, right? I understand, like, it seems like a quick fix at the moment. I think they're going to move away from this within 2 seasons. I think they're going to move away. I really do.
Interesting, yeah. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, it is. Yeah, it's going to be fun first year, because it's going to be the Wild West. Even though we do have some comps in XFL, like those dudes aren't. Those dudes
probably be the most important thing to watch during the preseason, actually.
Yeah, how to tackle. Yeah, good point. Good point. Okay, so we're going to wrap it up there. This week, Mark, as our primary host here on Rams Up, I'm assuming that the coming week is going to be chock full of draft conversations, right?
Oh yeah, and we hopefully us 4 can get together. I'm thinking next Tuesday night for our one and only Roundtable mock draft. We got to figure out the groundwork for that, how we're going to do it. But hopefully you guys are available, and we'll do that Tuesday night.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
I think we might need more than one night, but we'll have to see how it rolls.
Draft week 2024.
Yeah, I just want to. We're going to draft week, right? I do want to just make one note that I wrote down some things over the last 2 roundtables about what everyone thinks our first round draft pick should be. Ready? So here are the names that depending on the position group we were discussing, these are the names that were thrown out. This is who we should draft it with our 19th pick in the first round, right? Verse Latu, whoever's there. We got to get an edge in the first round. That's critical. We can't go into this, draft with our, with Young and whoever, right? And Hoyt. Yeah. Okay. And then it was, look at this defensive line group, guys. Like, we lost Donald, and we got a lot of, we got Kobe Turner and then Bobby Brown, but we lost Jonah Williams. We lost Marquise Copeland. We have to get a defensive lineman. I mean, that's critical, right? We got to replace it, and so Murphy's there. Now we're talking today about wide receiver. It's an offensive-driven scheme. We got to get a McConkey or a whoever, with our early on, and then at the end of the conversation today, we're talking about the O-line. You got to get. There's so many great O-linemen. Go grab one. They can fill in. Fashanu, Fuaga, whoever it is, right? So we got 6, 7, 8 guys that we've all just beat the drum for. So no need to comment right now. Just let it sift in. We only get one pick. I want to remind you, we get one pick at number 19, not 19 point way, 19 point B, or 19 point C. So anyway, I'm trying to be facetious.
I know, but no, it's a
hard choice, right? It's a hard choice, and then now this brings into the conversation: do we trade back and try and get two of these guys, and so forth and so on, right?
Yeah.
And so anyway, but I just wanted to, point out that I've been taking notes on what we've talked about, what's top of mind in front of our face when we're looking at a position group and thinking about it. But we got to ultimately take until early next week, and we'll to think about it. What's your absolute positive drop dead if we stay at 19? What's our pick, or do we drop back and try and grab a couple of position groups that are starters? And that's what I want you guys to think about, and then we'll dive into that next week. So, but good stuff. Final thoughts, Mark.
Got a lot to think about. And if you ask me 3 times in the next 10 minutes, I'll give you a different answer on what.
Yeah, depends on what slide is up on the screen.
But
right?
Man, just now, Paul missed it. But man, just going to remind you, our reaction to looking at that defensive line depth chart. It's pretty scary. So that's all I got to say about that. But there are some good defensive linemen that can be had in the second round.
There are.
Yeah.
Paul, final thoughts.
I think it's an exciting season. I'm really excited because sometimes it's better to be the underdog, instead of being the front runner. So I think it's an exciting season watching the puzzle pieces come together. Of the draft, I think the approach should be just load up on players that can play today, right? So you can get instant contributions, right? Use the phase 2, phase 3 of free agency in a very intelligent, purposeful way. And more importantly, if it winds up being, hopefully, right, a championship season, make sure Steven Jackson is at the podium when they're doing the trophy so that he can get recognized and make sure he gets a ring.
There we go.
That's my final comment.
I love it.
Well, what do I have to say? We don't know jack diddly squat about anything, do we? We have our ideas of who we should take. We went down every position group and how good or not good it looks. But at the end of the day, we don't know what Coach McVay thinks. We don't know what Leslie thinks. We have good ideas. We just got to hope they make the right decisions. And I think that's all our fan base is hoping for, making proper and educated decisions. Please, let's try to win another Super Bowl soon.
Love it. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, great job, guys. Thanks a lot. That's a good breakdown of the offensive group. If you missed it, go back and listen to our breakdown of the defensive group and the depth chart there and where we're at and what our needs are. And coming into next week when we go into the hardcore draft, I mean, Paul and Mark in particular have been holding down the fort on mock drafts, very well versed in what our options are and what could happen and the different scenarios. So next week we'll get together. Mark will be leading it on the draft conversations and certainly at least one, maybe 2 nights of mock drafts going into leading up to next week's draft. So thanks a lot for joining us. This has been the Rams Up Roundtable, and look forward to getting with you guys next time.
Full speed ahead, baby. Ram Nation.
Rams 2024. Please don't make me sad.
That's going to do it for this episode. Remember, you can reach us at ramsuppodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget about our YouTube channel. Our handle is at laramsup.com. Till next time, keep the horns up, stay safe, and have fun out there.